Hello everybody and welcome to another hobby cheating video, and today it's time to explore the paint set given to us by one of my all-time painting heroes, the John Blanche Paints. Let's get into it.
The strict technomancer that is Vincey V. Let us get to the technique and learn it Vincey
So,
V style.
the new Army Painter John Blanche set paints, this is one of the two, there are two of them out, we'll be talking about both today, came to us. And they're obviously drawn from the style and art of John Blanche himself, one of the most influential artists within our hobby space. Blanche is obviously incredibly inspiring to me personally. A lot of the art that he created is stuff that, frankly, shaped my interest in this hobby in Warhammer and in everything I do today. So I thought this was a good chance to take these paints out, give them a test, and see what we think of them. So let's head over to the desk and let's get painting. All right, so today there's only one model we could use to show all this off. It's our old buddy, Larry the Ogre. He's back, he's been painted over again, and he's ready for more. So this first part here, I'm just gonna work my way through a lot of the different paints in the set. Here's all the paints as they are out on there. Now, quick note, I am not including any of the shades in this review, so like the warm skin tone and stuff like that. Those seemed like basically the existing shades to me, so this is going to be kind of everything new. Here's the specific paints that I'm covering, and so first thing I do, we'll leave the new speed paints and the metallics until the end, so let's focus on the sort of matte paints, traditional paints first. Okay, we get them all out on our palette. Of course, there is a little complaint here I have. These dropper bottles are still the old style dropper bottles, so they're prone to clogging, as you see immediately when I push too hard and screw it up and squeeze out too much of the white paint. Oops, whatever, it's fine, life goes on. Okay, so once I've got all the paints ready, it's time to put some paint on Larry the Ogre, and we're gonna just kind of work through things. Now, one of your first impressions when you look at this might be that, yeah, but there's not really any skin tones in here. So this is obviously somewhat inspired and drawn from a Zorn palette, which is something that John Blanche uses quite frequently, but it's not limited to just that. There is more expanse in here than what that just provides. It's effectively sort of the sort of expanded Zorn is what it's often referred to, but it brings in kind of the green tones, that kind of thing. But either way, it's an interesting selection of paints. And we certainly do have something we can use for skin, specifically Ruddy Terra. And there's actually a couple different paints in here that could work for a skin tone. But I'm going to use Ruddy Terra. I think it's actually a great base, very tan skin tone, as you'll see. So I just begin by laying that down. Y'all kind of mention as I'm going through the paints here, but you're going to see me just kind of paint through the skin and some of these elements. What I do want to say about these paints is that I think they did do a little bit of reformulation from the Fanatic line, so from their relaunch of paints. I actually like the reformulation. The original speed paints are great, and the original Fanatic paints are great, and I use them a lot, but they are a little bit hydrophobic, so that is to say they tend to dry a little fast if you don't have your wet palette being incredibly moist. One thing I've noticed with the John Blanche set is they must have messed with the chemistry just a little. Like, it's small, but it's noticeable difference that these are a little more hydrophilic. And so they will intake the water, and I found they remained workable on my palette quite a lot longer. So just a note, that's an improvement. If I'm wrong and I'm crazy, I don't know, but I've had the two, like I've been using these now for a couple months before this, and I've noted that when I have both next to each other, they will dry out at different rates. So that's been my impression as I've used these now for like 2 months before I did this review. I wanted to make sure that I had a really good understanding of the set. All right. As you can see now, I've basically taken that Ruddy Terra and started integrating increasing amounts of ivory white. And this gives us a really, really nice skin tone. I actually love how this looks. It's a very simple skin tone, just 2 tones. Terra plus the white gives us a very convincing, simple progression on the skin. And as you can see, I think it comes out pretty well. Now, of course, skin needs a little more than that. We need some red tones in there to make the thing feel alive. That's where we're going to go to our Blanched Berry. This is a wonderful shadow red tone, so I'm going to use it in 2 different varieties here. It's really, really dark. It's got a bit of a crimson to it. Great for your shadows on your skins, but also like lips and deep sort of red hair. All of those things are going to be great uses for this. So here what I do is I make two different versions of it, thinning it out very much into a glaze where I then softly apply it to the lower areas of Larry's skin, producing a really nice rich shadow red tone down there. I was very happy with how this came out, and that's absolutely you're going to see it in future videos as a sort of low red tone for skin. But then I also just kept it a little thicker, and I do sort of Larry's lips, his nips, all that kind of thing. And again, great tone there for that. Nice base tone, so it worked perfectly. It is very dark in how it dries, so it just as a note, it will be a little darker on the model than how it looks on the palette. Next up, we go to the darkness. Which is going to be great for things like, your sort of pants and things like that. It's a nice Payne's gray-ish color. Frankly, it's just a Payne's gray. It's a blue-black. It has that desaturated blue-gray-black. Love it. You know I love Payne's gray. I've made one myself. Use it all the time. No drama. Again, very easy integration into most of your paint routines as a low shadow or a universal shadow color or anything like that. In this case, we're just going to give him those kind of dark blue pants. Works well for that kind of almost maybe like rough denim material or something of that nature. Now, I only did half his pants, so I could do the other half. Sometimes, my picture is he's an ogre with a kind of split pant color. That was a thing that you often see in ogres. So here I use some Midnight Olive. This is actually a really nice dark yellow-green color. I could see this as being an excellent base skin tone for your orcs or anything like that. Excellent orky or goblin skin color, but also, again, very useful for things like nature, trees and grass, base tones, a lot of like wild plants and things like that. So anytime you have a nature scene or greenskins or anything like that, I think it's a really, really useful tone. Feels very natural. It's got that yellowness to it that's going to make it feel much more warm, and so I think that does make it useful. To that point, there's also the bring in like this Tainted Garden as the highlight. That's a more bright yellow green, so we kind of have two yellow greens here. The Tainted Garden, I mix it in with the greens, and you can see me kind of just highlight up the pants here a little bit, just to create some light on the pants, show how that would work. This is a very natural highlight color for this green, so again, this would be the natural progression for your highlight with greenskins or orcs or goblins or anything like that. I do also think this Tainted Garden could be an interesting mix-in to things like if you want a model that looks more sick or jaundiced or unhealthy, or if you want to use it in very light amounts, like very thin glazes, this would be an excellent color for bringing more warmth or direct sunshine, the sort of golden hour tone, into skin. So quite an actual versatile tone. Great for like if you want kind of the Frazetta type of element or Brahm. They often use this yellow-green in the lower parts of their models on skin. So I think it would align very well there. I'm going to play around with that a little more in the future and see what all we can do with this. I think it's actually, the Tainted Garden I think is one of the more versatile colors in the set. So don't sleep on that yellow-green. Even though it doesn't have any immediate uses, I think either mixed into a lot of other colors or as thin glazes, it can really do a lot. Okay. Ironclad Gray is kind of a dark black gray color. Great base tone for things like belts, leather boots, all that kind of stuff. I like a tone like this. I don't like using pure black, I'll just say that. I've talked about how I think pure black is kind of just boringness in a bottle. I use it only for base rims, basically. I like things that have a little more interesting value to them or variation. And so this was a good chance to see that in action. And so the Tainted Gray is a good base. I ended up using it for that. I think I could absolutely see it for, again, belts, boots, all that kind of stuff. The next thing, there's a lot of colors here that I didn't cover. So they fall into a sort of triad that actually works perfectly for non-metallic gold. So instead of actually talking you through this, I thought I'd let you just see it in action. So let's take these three colors, this deep brown, this light brown, sort of terracotta color, and then the yellow. Let's do some gold. So here we go. pretty cool, right? I did end up bringing in a little ivory white at the end, obviously, to create the full gold effect, but I think it's a pretty convincing set of colors for non-metallic gold. So if you've been looking for sort of a prefab recipe for your non-metallic gold, well, here you go. It comes with those three. Take a little break here in the middle just to say, I often do this at the end, but I'm going to say it here. If you enjoy these kind of reviews, if you enjoy this channel and you like this content, consider supporting it. I don't ever do ads or stuff like that. It's all self-supported, or supported through all of you, I should say. Not self-supported. That's definitely not true. It's supported through all of you. So check down below for the Patreon link. That's a great way to support this channel. There's a great community we have focused on review and feedback, and we'd love to have you as part of it. So if you want to help out the channel and keep us doing stuff like this, check out that link. Love to have you. Okay, back to the review. All right. So I do end up using the darkness as well. It's got just a little bit of this kind of the darkness. It has a little bit of that Payne's Gray Blue in it. So I wanted to try it for a little tattoo, and sure enough, worked perfectly. Great tattoo color. I'm always like, those Payne's Gray tones are just really good for doing tattoos, and ogres have a lot of tattoos, so I do a little quick maw on his back. So if you're looking for a good tattoo color, that will work great. Now, there's still two more tones out of the matte stuff we haven't touched. And that's Blighted Green and Fiery Vermilion. I didn't really have anywhere on Larry to stick these two colors, so here's a little Bretonnian Archer. And I just wanted to kind of show you what they look like. So I painted them both on there. I will say the green is fine. The Blighted Green is something that kind of already existed in their range. I didn't find it that much different than some of the colder green tones they have. I didn't see a huge switch or need for this one. I think this is maybe one of the weaker ones out of the set. It is quite dark, but it wasn't doing anything like revolutionary to me. On the other hand, the Fiery Vermilion, now that was a needed color in the range. So this is a wicked poppin' orange red. And I love this color. So as you can see, on the Archer, it is so bright. This is a color we need in the range. The reds were the weakest part of the Fanatic line, so this is an absolutely critical addition to the line, and I was very happy to see it. Okay, with the matte paints out of the way, let's talk a little about the speed paints. So specifically, we get a nice turquoise and a sort of blood red, this very dark color. Again, I'll use the Bretonnian Archer just on the other side. The blood red's very interesting. It looks a lot darker on the palette and on the bottle than how it dries over something like a zenithal, as you can see here. It again dries with a little more of an orange tone, actually. I don't know how bloody it is. It's quite matte, so it doesn't dry with like a satin or anything like that. Like the rest of the speed paints, it is meant to be just a normal tone, not actually fake blood. There's a technical paint in their range for that. But I do like it. It's sort of an interesting tone, being that kind of deep, almost brown, orange-infused red. I need to play around with this some more to figure out exactly what the uses for it would be, other than just being a literal straight speed paint. Now, the turquoise, on the other hand, I like a lot. As you can see, it's really dark. And why I like this in the speed paint is this is actually filling a hole in the speed paint line they didn't have. So this is sort of the really nice, deep green-blue. And where you're going to see me use this later, again, like as a base tone for the speed paint, you'd have to do a lot of highlighting with it. But as a weathering and a first step, which is how I'm going to use it later here next, on like coppers and golds and stuff, there I think it's actually ripping. You start with that and then go to something like an oxide, like a nilic oxide or a verdigris or anything like that, and you're going to have a really great progression for doing your copper-based weathering and oxidation. All right, the last two to test in the range are the steel and the gold. Now, I am not the biggest fan of the Fanatic metallics. Honestly, I think the speed paint metallics are formulated better than the regular Fanatic metallics. The speed paint metallics have sort of alcohol in them. They use aluminum flakes, things like that. These seem to be more in line consistency-wise. Like, obviously, I don't have the chemistry. I'm not Goober. I don't have the Goobertown. I don't have the awesome... Goobs has that awesome microscope. But they don't have the same mixture as near as I can tell from playing with them. though they do seem a little more fluid than the previous metallic mixtures. So I think, again, there might have been some slight alterations of the chemistry here. I did find them a little easier to work with in the base Fanatic metallics. They're not as good as sort of a Vallejo metal color, let's just be straight. But Vallejo metal color's gold also sucks, whereas this gold was very easy to work with and is a lot warmer. So the metal color, the steel in here is like really dark. I think it's fine. Like if you're going to get these sets, it's perfectly usable. As you can see, it has a nice coverage. I put it over top of the darkness. And it came out, sorry, over the ironclad gray, I apologize. And it came out fine. It's shiny, but not incredibly shiny. It's a good grim dark steel is honestly where I would rate it. So if you're looking for a metal that doesn't have a huge amount of reflectivity, is a little more like black metal or tarnished or more in that grimdark style, it's perfectly fine and a good product for that. I would rate it probably like a B or B+. So pretty good from the metal paints on the market. I think it's frankly better than most I've used. The gold, on the other hand, I like. It felt like it had the coverage of sort of a Retributor gold from GW or something like that, where it's got it's really good opacity, but at the same time, it was much, much easier to work with, and it isn't as orange. It's warmer without looking like cheese, so I appreciate that. I found it to be a pretty nice, slightly warm mid-tone gold. Honestly, I think for a lot of people, it would be perfectly passable. Again, I'd probably give the gold color maybe a B to B+. In both cases, I didn't really see any kind of like speckling or flakes, so whether they're using any kind of mica or aluminum or maybe a mix, I couldn't tell, but whatever it is, they're certainly grinding it fine enough that it's producing a credible metal coverage over the model. So all in all, I found the metallics to be either in line with or slightly better than the Fanatic. Probably I think I would still prefer the Speed Paint metallics, as I just think they're a really unique product that just applies so easily, but as always, your mileage may vary. So after having painted these, what's my final verdict? Well, the final verdict is I think that this is a really good set. It added, both of these two sets, the John Blanche sets, added actually a lot of colors that I think the Fanatic range didn't have, which is shocking because the full paint set is huge, and yet somehow there were still colors not in there. As I said, I think the MVP of the set is honestly the Fiery Vermilion. I think it was a red that the line just lacked. It's super strong and super, it's powerful, it's intense, it's bright, it has a great, great look on the figure. My other standouts are certainly the darkness, because I love that sort of Payne's gray. Again, very useful color that wasn't in the base Fanatic range, so I think it's a great addition. I really do love the Ruddy Terra. That very solid tone, I think, is incredibly useful. In fact, both of the sort of off-brown colors, the Ruddy Terra and the other one in this range, I think are both incredibly valuable for a wide panoply of skin tones, of non-metallics, so just actually quite useful. And again, not a color that really existed in the range, that as it currently stands, so very new. My other favorite has to be that Tainted Garden, that very interesting yellow-green, which I don't know if I would use much as a standalone, but I think is incredibly versatile in what it can do with glazes, working across a variety of figures and armies to produce really interesting tonal variation. So again, don't sleep on that one. It's a little bit more unusual in its applications, whereas the previous colors I talked about, the red and the Terra, you can just slap those on and get a lot of uses out of them. This one's a little more nuanced, but I don't think that detracts from its value. I think it's something you're going to see pop up in a lot of videos I do in the future. So overall, I certainly think these are great paint sets. I think the Army Painter did a good job here of both like honoring the color palette and style and grimdark legacy of John Blanche, while also giving us a useful paint set. I do very much appreciate the slight reformulation, as near as I can tell, of the chemistry in the paints. The slightly more hydrophilic nature has meant I just get more work out of them, as I'm in a very, very dry environment where I'm painting. My basement is bone dry. So I really appreciate that I get a lot more working time out of them, and they're certainly a good set. I find I've been reaching for them pretty often as part of the work that I've been doing. So I'd certainly recommend them as a pickup, especially if you like John Blanche and want to paint in that John Blanche or grimdark or anything like that style. So those are my thoughts. If you've used the set and you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear what you think. Drop them down in the comments below. That's really appreciated. If you've got any questions about the set that I didn't answer, put those down there as well. I always answer every question asked. As I said earlier in the video, if you want to support the channel, hey, it's really appreciated. Hit like, hit subscribe, do all that stuff. It's free, and it does really help other people find the videos. If you want to use your money, that's even more appreciated. And there's lots of ways you can do so. There's our Patreon, as I said earlier, focused on review and feedback. We'd love to have you as part of that community. But there's also our affiliate links down there. They don't cost you anything extra, and in fact, they often save you money. Things like our Michigan Toy Soldier link, you can get 5% off of any hobby purchases you might need, and it really does help the channel in a big way. So thank you to everybody who supported the channel, who watched this, who's hitting that like button. It really does help keep me going and keep the channel going. Thank you so much for watching this. I really appreciate it. And as always, we'll see you next time.